Go over the line. Oh, he's got to go, keep off the line.
I thought twice, actually. The referee let it go the first time.
Now, what's he going to do? He's got the third. Oh, a beautiful goal. What idiot. What a save. Oh, a great goal. Bateu violento, gol. Oh!
That was really fine, wasn't it? I've never seen one even close to that.
Pelé was gone from Giant Stadium, but the North American Soccer League lived on. As the greatest armada of world-class soccer superstars ever assembled showed off their talent among the 24 franchises then operating in the NASL. Some showed an enthusiasm beyond the call of duty.
Best maneuvering unbelievably. Best still has it. I don't believe this move. He's
Never seen one better than that, Charlie. That was really fine, wasn't it? I've never seen one even.
But a new goal-scoring superstar had emerged. His name, Giorgio Chinaglia.
Shot by Chinaglia, goal! Oh, my word.
The 28-year-old Chinaglia joined the Cosmos and Pelé in 1976. He had played his last 7 seasons of first-class soccer in Italy.
I started my professional career when I was 15. I was an apprentice professional. I just came out of the schools and I wanted to be a soccer player, and that's what I did. And I started off there. It wasn't a good time because I wasn't very well liked by the coaches. They thought I was too egoistic, I wouldn't pass the ball, and all I wanted to do was score goals, which I think that's the name of the game, is scoring goals. But in those days, I think they had a different mentality. My first wife was American, so in 1973, 72, we came on a tour to the United States. We played in New York, we played in Toronto, we played in Hartford and in Montreal. And I liked America a lot. So I decided then at a certain point, in the prime of my career, I was 28 years of age, to come to the Cosmos. Besides, they give me a lot of money. But the best experience of my life was playing for the 8 years for the Cosmos.
No wonder. His earnings as a player and an executive of the Cosmos was exceeding $1 million a year. And Giorgio rewarded the Cosmos with goal after goal. In this 1980 playoff match against the Tulsa Roughnecks, he scored a record-breaking 7 goals.
I think my best year as a player was in 1980 when I scored 18 goals in the playoffs and 32 goals in the regular season. So it's 50 goals in one season is a lot of goals. I have an average of more than 1 goal a game, so therefore I think I played like 250 games. I scored 260 goals for the Cosmos, so this is not bad. It's a bad average to have.
Giorgio Chinaglia had become a household name and one of the NASL's most recognizable stars.
Yes, so we worked very hard this season to win this championship, and I'm very, very thrilled and very, very happy.
You got 50 for the year, George. How do you top it?
Not bad.
Not
we'll
bad.
try again next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Giorgio.
Giorgio Chinaglia, simply the finest goal scorer in North American soccer history. As international stars continued to dominate the NASL, once in a while a local boy was given a chance to show his stuff.
Set it up.
You know, as a young player, to have the opportunity to play with the great players and to play in an environment like Giant Stadium in front of sellout crowds was, it was like a dream. To suddenly have Eddie Firmani and the Cosmos offer me the opportunity to play with Pelé, to play with Franz Beckenbauer, Giorgio Chinaglia, Carlos Alberto. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So not only was, was it just like the fulfillment of a dream, but a little bit intimidating.
Comes Ricky Davis. Watch this young native-born American score this goal at an almost impossible angle.
My role, as it was actually the matchup guy. I can remember plenty of times in games where being matched up with George Best, George is a talker. And nonstop he'd be saying, "Oh, Rick, get away, this isn't what the fans want to see, and why are you bothering me?" And I'm saying, "Hey, George, this is my job."
Ricky made his debut with the Cosmos in 1978.
Rick Davis was the first American-born soccer star to emerge from the NASL.
Points and become the PSRA Player of the Year. Ricky Davis of the Cosmos.
Wow, looking back at my career and trying to single out a highlight, I'd probably say when I got selected to play in the World All-Star Game.
Right-footed shot, and it's into the back of the net.
As Davis performed on the world stage, a young Canadian was making his mark in the NASL.
1978 was a storybook year. It was one of those years where everything I touched turned to gold. I got 17 assists, I got 10 goals. I'd love to sit here and tell you, and enough time's gone by that I could suggest that I was brilliant in midfield and that's my position and that's where I should have played my whole career. I'm fortunate in that I had a year that enabled me to be in that position. But the next season, I was happy to be back in defense. I didn't like the pressure of having to reproduce what I did in that season in 1978.
Though a defender, Bobby would continue to score, and none felt better than those against the Cosmos. The matches featuring the Cosmos and the Whitecaps were fiercely contested, sometimes looking more like a hockey game.
I remember my first year with the Vancouver Whitecaps, because I just came as another player. When I came on the plane, there was Roger Kenyon and Trevor Wymark and Willie Johnson and all these players that I'd watched as a young lad playing football, and now I was coming over to Vancouver with them. For me, it was certainly a fairy tale year.
We were doing okay, but we were winning most, but losing a few, and we hadn't quite got the chemistry there. Bob McNabb was my assistant, and he said, "We need something else." He said, "Alan Ball's at Philadelphia, and he's very unhappy there." And we managed to swing it and got Alan Ball into the team, and that really was the catalyst. So we went on and won the Soccer Bowl that year.
Vancouver meets Tampa Bay in Soccer Bowl 79. A shot! A goal by Trevor Wymark! Vancouver has taken the lead. They've gotten the critical first goal. Wymark, 28 years old. Here they come. Van der Veen with the ball. Has he got a shot? Yes, it's a goal! John Van der Veen ties it up. There's Alan Ball getting in the middle of Wymark. The shot. It's in. It's a goal. Wymark scoring his second goal of the day. Is that it? Unofficially, the clock has run out. It's all over. The Vancouver Whitecaps are the new champions of the North American Soccer League, and they earned it every step of the way.
From 1968 till its demise in 1984, 72 soccer franchises played in the North American Soccer League. One of its most known players was American-born goalie Arnie Mauser.
In the early years in the NASL, it was really starting to boom. The salaries were getting much better. Had a great lifestyle. We played, so many games. We went overseas. It was great. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, no matter what. Even though my parents think I should have probably followed maybe a medical career, did something else in retrospect, but I don't think I would have changed it for anything in the world.
Now the Cosmos with a shot in the middle. Arnie Mauser with a diving save. Mauser knocks it away. A fine save by Mauser.
A good save by Arnie Mauser, but I think that shot was going in.
Goalkeepers in the NASL had to face the world's best strikers, and sometimes they were the stars of the game. By 1983, the NASL was down to 12 clubs, and attendances were beginning to dwindle. The Toronto Blizzard, now guided by Claude, signed Italian international star striker Roberto Bettiga in an attempt to win ethnic favour with Toronto's large Italian immigrant base.
That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
After spending 13 years in Juventus, I thought that was probably the moment that I had to decide when to leave. And at that time I had two options, were Toronto or New York. But let's say that Toronto at that time was more concrete, and I signed the contract.
Well, Roberto was an institution. In fact, Roberto took us on tour to Italy. I actually saw an older gentleman kiss Roberto Bettiga's feet in Italy. So that sort of told you how highly regarded he was, and everything he did, whether it was training, his appearance off the field, was always class.
In the North American Soccer League there were 24 clubs, and then suddenly they went to 9 in my last year, so something was not right. I can now tell you something that for myself was incredible. My first year we had to play the final in Vancouver against Tulsa. Tulsa came after the semi-final, if I remember well, beating Montreal, with one player out for red card. Okay, they came and they said, if the player is not playing, we are not playing the game. Do you believe that the commissioner at that time said, yes, he has to play, he scored one goal and we are lost? It's incredible. This is crazy, because what could we do? Say, no, Blizzard is not going the pitch. But this was good for soccer? No.
So you had a Canadian team playing in Canada, but the fans were supporting Tulsa, an American team, and to add insult to injury, the supposedly suspended Ron Fucha was to score both Tulsa goals.
Took the Blizzard to 2 soccer bowls, 83 and the final one, 84. Around that time, just after the soccer bowl, Howard Samuels, who had replaced Phil Woosnam at the head of the league, died of a heart attack, and I was pressed into replacing him on an interim basis, and found, in fact, once I got in there, that the league was in a mess. We had 18 clubs at the time. 6 were doing fine, 6 were doing okay, 6 were doing badly. And there was one school of thought which said, let's keep the 12 that are doing well or doing okay, and the 6 that are doing badly, we either get rid of them, or we move them to a better market, or we keep them in the same market and find them better owners. The other school of thought was, let's expand to 24, because there were plenty of people wanting to buy franchises at $3 million a time. Let's expand to 24, take in all that money, spread it around the league, and make the league stronger. Well, the kinds of people we let in at that time were the kinds of people you would not want to have in a professional league. They came in for all the wrong reasons. They came in because they believed that all you needed was a large stadium, players, and whoops, everyone's going to turn up. The time I got in there were really only 2 clubs left who'd put up their performance bonds and were ready to operate in 1985. That was Minnesota Strikers, owned by Joe Robbie, and the Toronto Blizzard.
It became a problem of salaries, where salaries were increasing suddenly, as in fact they are in Europe now, and they have an immense problem with salaries in Europe at this particular time. There were no salary limits in any sport at that particular time. They didn't start until the early 80s. If we could have cured that problem in the final stages of the league, maybe we could have continued.
It wasn't worth, it's just impossible to continue. So that was the end of that.
There was a third factor, and no one could foresee this, I don't think, very easily: indoor soccer. Because suddenly now we had a confused marketplace. We had this game called soccer. Now, was it played outside, 11 aside? Was it played in a hockey rink? What was it? It was a difficult one to deal with. What is soccer? Well, we know what soccer is because internationally everyone knows what soccer. It's not indoor, it's not futsal, it's the game, the beautiful game, played by Pelé and the rest of them. And that's the market we should have been in, not trying to play this rinky-dink indoor game.
Some of soccer's best players, managers and corporate sponsors had tried and failed. But as the immortal Shakespeare would have said, if love be the true meaning of life, then so is loss. Both American and Canadian soccer fans had experienced an incredible era of soccer and had had a brief love affair with the beautiful game. But by 1985, all that was left was the loss, because the North American Soccer League, born in 1968, died in 1985, and its 72 soccer franchises and empty stadiums passed into the annals of soccer history. Acting Commissioner Clive Toy had been unable to salvage the NASL for the 1985 season, and it was pronounced dead, being subject to a disease which at that time they called lack of money. It was now but a ghost of soccer past. Canadian Bruce Wilson had been a player in the NASL. Bruce remembers well the value of the NASL to the Canadian national team.
The North American League was a very, very good league. It gave a chance to Americans, it gave a chance to Canadian players to play with some of the best players in the world. And it was a delight to play in the league. It certainly developed me as a player, and it certainly helped develop our national team as well.
Canada in the 1985 CONCACAF playoffs had to beat Honduras in a final match played in St. John's, Newfoundland to qualify for World Cup '86. If they won, it would be Canada's first ever appearance in a World Cup final.
Carl Valentine to take it. Swings it in, Bridge gets ahead on it. There's the shot, they score! It's in! Canada has got in front, 2-1. And the referee again checking his watch. And there it goes! The final whistle. Canada has qualified for World Cup '86, defeating Honduras.
I played in the World Cup in '86 at the age 35, believe it or not. In fact, I think I was the oldest player in the World Cup. Making the World Cup in '86 was definitely a highlight of anyone's career, and to be able to captain our country in the greatest event there is in the game certainly can't be duplicated.
If Bruce Wilson was among the oldest players in World Cup '86, then 21-year-old Canadian midfielder Paul James was amongst the youngest.
It was the first time ever Canada qualified, and it was a moment in my life that I will cherish for the rest of my life. And it was with Randy Samuels running around the field. Hard to describe. The first game, quite frankly, for me, I don't know about the rest of the players, but the finals were, and particularly the first game, because it was against France, and there was so much build-up and publicity, it was a little bit of a blur. You know, we were so wound up and so nervous, really. I think everybody was, including Tony Wade. It was the first time I saw Tony Wade where I could actually see and detect that there was a bit of nervous energy there.
What I was afraid of, I didn't want us to be blown out the water. And you know, that would have been a setback for the game and a setback for the team. So, nervous, yes, because it wasn't a personal nervousness, it was a concern that maybe, you know, we wouldn't do very well and it would reflect badly on the game for us.
By 1987, Canada was busy kicking off its first fully professional nationwide soccer league. The first CSL match took place on a dark and rainy day in the nation's capital, Ottawa, as the Ottawa National Pioneers faced the Hamilton Steelers before less than a sellout crowd.
With League Commissioner Dale Barnes and the CSL's founding father Bill Gillespie looking on, the Steelers would score the game's first goal through Billy.
As I was later to comment upon taking the position of commissioner of the CSL, I quickly learned that a team owner had falsified his letter of credit. Then I was put in the position of having to loan the league personally $10,000 so it could meet its TV financial contract commitment. This before we had even kicked a ball. And I sadly realized we were terribly underfunded and we were in for a very hard and long battle just for the CSL to survive.
I think in the beginning, the CSA gave life to the league. And I hate to say this, but in the end, I think the CSA, because of its inactivity or lack of activity in the league, gave death to the CSL.
It had been a frantic first season, fraught with financial danger, as many clubs falsified attendances, revenues, and their financial status. But somehow, all 8 clubs had survived. New sponsors were on board, and the CSL TV contract with the Sports Network held firm.
Calgary were champions, but Hamilton could hold their heads high for a job well done. The excitement of the final, and for that matter the entire season, had everyone looking ahead to the start of season number 2.
One of the CSL's biggest problems was the Ontario National Soccer League. It had existed for many years, but its major teams, Toronto Croatia and Toronto Italia, were refused entry into the CSL because the Canadian Soccer Association had banned the use of ethnic named teams in favor of a Canadian-only identity. This angered the National Soccer League, led by its commissioner, Rocco LaFranco.
Somebody made a motion that we must Canadianize the league. No ethnic groups. And of course I had to defend my identity, my existence, because I'm probably the only one in this country never lost a penny in soccer. Never. And I can verify this. But a lot of people lost their shirt. Why? Because I had a strong community behind. It's no sense pointing the finger at anyone. I think everyone is to be blamed, including me. We should have stuck together, have a business plan, together with the CSA. The CSA never had a clear vision, never showed the leadership. That to me was the most important thing. But then an animosity was created between the NSL and the CSL and the CSA. I could go on and on and on and on for hours. Yes, I made mistakes. There's no question. Because I was stubborn in defending my identity. And the Constitution of this country allowed me to do that.
We can't just blame it on one man. I mean, there was many of us could have done a lot more. And perhaps many people stand on the fence that could have come in and perhaps help. But I think he's probably just as guilty as probably the CSA is. They could have come in and done a lot more, and they didn't. It was something that I believed that the only way soccer would succeed if we had in a Canadian league. And I still believe that to this day.
Rocco would create new NSL franchises in Ontario cities wherever the CSL had chosen to expand. This divided the fans and sponsors. Occasionally, Rocco went completely overboard, waving that much-abused red herring, racism, as in this interview in 1990 in London, Ontario, where a CSL franchise, the London Lasers, already existed. Rocco opened in competition London City.
There's no question in my mind that money has been misplaced. There's no question that the CSA has a racist approach because they're prohibiting the use of ethnic names. And nobody is going to discriminate against my name or my culture. And that's exactly what the Canadian Soccer Association is doing.
And if he's saying that the league is being racist against Italians, particularly because he's an Italian, I can name you 3 clubs right now that are run, owned, operated by Italians. There's North York, there's Hamilton, there's Edmonton. The CSL is not excluding any race from this league.
I do believe if intelligently you sit down with anyone and you open a dialogue among intelligent people, you always find a solution. Unfortunately, it never took place and everybody suffered, everybody lost. I'm the first one to admit I made a mistake. I should maybe initiate, but I saw a stumbling block from the CSA. I thought CSA was guiding the CSL and the commissioner not to talk to us.
Despite all of this, the CSL was still holding its own. But with Toronto being the corporate centre of Canada, this eternal and ridiculous ethnic squabble was doing irreparable damage in all directions. Corporate, media, and the fans in large numbers simply chose not to get involved and just stepped away. However, at the start of the 1990 season, as CSL Commissioner, I was fortunate enough to introduce our major corporate sponsor, Meta, whose name was proudly attached to the CSL Championship Cup.
We've actually gone 3 years without losing a franchise city. That's a record. The NFL can't say that, the American baseball, but we're in the entertainment business. Business is the end of the line. Some are going to make it just like in any other business, some aren't.
In 1990, to all outside appearances, all was well. In fact, I had managed to convince the American Professional Soccer League to send their reigning champions, the Maryland Bays, to play against our reigning champions, the Vancouver 86ers. It was to be the first ever North American International Club Championship. In many ways, I considered this to be our finest moment. And as the clubs prepared for the 1990 Meta Cup final, I appealed to the Canadian Soccer Association for support. I pointed out that Canada was a continent in size, and that though the CSL clubs could support the player payroll, the air travel costs were killing them. I proposed to the CSA that a $1 levy, just $1, on all 600,000 registered Canadian players be imposed, and that these funds be utilized solely for the purpose of CSL airline costs, and that all monies be held by the CSA for airline negotiations. And in exchange, I offered on behalf of the league free admission to all games for children 12 and under, and to assist in airline negotiations, free TV commercials on all game broadcasts, plus exclusive in-stadium promotional rights. But I was turned down without discussion. You see, unlike other pro soccer leagues around the world, who share 50-50 in the annual general meeting voting powers of the national associations, we in the CSL had less than 3% of the vote, which left us with no negotiating power. In other words, the amateurs were running the show. And for want of $1, we lost the league, because I realized the end was now only a matter of time. In 1990, few would sense that the league would only survive one more year. At a 1991 CSL preseason press conference, as commissioner, I realized that my options and those of the league had run their course. And the time has come for me to say my farewells. It is time in my private life, I had never dreamed of this being a job forever, for me to expand my business future and develop my own future in terms of creativity.
I feel that we were there, and Mr. Barnes provided a lot of talent, provided a lot of good suggestions, provided a lot of leadership, provided, especially with media, his background, soccer, it was great. But I feel that he never got rewarded for what he put into soccer.
Regrettably, the CSL was to fold at the end of the following season. What had started as the Great Northern Dream was now only that, just a dream. Its demise brought about by petty jealousies between CSL club owners, selfish local leagues, and the unforgivable wanton indifference of the provincial associations and the CSA. They had all fallen victim to the lack of a greater vision. It has badly hurt the beautiful game in Canada ever since.
side.
By 1993, Canadian soccer dreams were in shreds, but it was a different story in the USA. The turning point for US soccer started with qualification to the 1990 World Cup, followed in June of '93 when in a friendly against arch rivals England, the US revived memories of glories past.
To keep the ball alive, and then he has an idea, puts the U.S. team up 1-0. Here's Agus.
American soccer was beginning to make its mark. The USA had been host for both the Olympic Games and the World Cup in '94. It was from the incredible attendances at these games and the money that came with it that prompted the Americans to circulate this confidential memorandum. They were seeking potential high rollers for a new American professional soccer league. It would be a league with teams owned by the league, with clubs sold on a franchise basis. Its mentor was the former head of the USA '94 World Cup organization. His name, Alan Rothenberg, and in October of 1995, at the Palladium nightclub in New York, he was to announce the beginning of his American dream.
When FIFA awarded the 1994 World Cup to the United States, they asked us to do three things. One, stage a successful World Cup. Two, improve the fortunes of soccer generally in the United States. And three, create a Division I professional outdoor soccer league. Well, we've done it. And now comes the time for the cherry on the icing on the cake, the successful launch of Major League Soccer.
The league kicked off in Spartan Stadium, home of the San Jose Flash, before a sellout crowd and a ton of hoopla. San Jose's opponents that inaugural day were DC United. The match featured two former U.S. teammates facing off against each other, John Hart, starring for DC United, and Eric Wynalda, starring for the Flash, and in the 80th minute, the fans received what they had been waiting for.
Now looking for the shot, gets it, far post, goal! Goal for Eric Wynalda! San Jose has scored!
Wynalda had scored the first ever goal to be recorded in the MLS, but many more were to follow as games opened across the U.S. with good attendance. By October the 20th, 1996, the first MLS final was about to kick off. It was to be played at Foxborough Stadium in New England, and with winds gusting to 40 miles an hour and 6 inches of rain expected, it could be said it was a perfect soccer day. As the LA Galaxy faced DC United, it was to be the dream opening final, with the Galaxy first taking a 2-goal lead and Galaxy goalkeeper Campos looking to be unbeatable. But then everything changed.
On the counter, the shot, goal! Loose in the area, shot by Medved, fouled for the goal! We're tied at 2! Spin toward the box, and at the 6, it's headed home! And DC United stands alone.
It was truly a storybook beginning, as DC United win in overtime. And great crowds witnessed a great game with a promise of more to come next year. By 2003, the MLS still featured 10 teams, with an average attendance of almost 15,000 fans. Today, the USA is developing a vast array of soccer talent. Add to this the limitation on imports playing within the league, and the USA is clearly on the right path, showcasing homeborn talent and a sprinkling of new Canadian and foreign arrivals.
That's what takes us to look for other things like the indoor game and camps. Here you get paid year-round. You can pretty much take the month off that you have to relax instead of being worried about what I'm going to do next for my next paycheck.
As the MLS continues to grow, Canada is left with only professional soccer representation in the American A-League.
Just moments away from the opening kickoff.
Its precursor was the old American Soccer League, which ran from 1921 to 1983. The A-League could be fairly categorized as third division football, both in attendance and play, but it does serve a very important purpose to the more modest clubs, as explained by its commissioner, Francisco Marcus.
We are now beginning to see teams having proper stadiums, soccer stadiums, at their level, of course, small, that they control, and entire structures on and off the field are beginning to take place. Clubs, European-style clubs, adapted to North American reality, which we cannot forget about, is something that's beginning to happen, and the pyramidic structure is finally taking place, that is being built from the bottom. Rather than starting at the top, we are really trying to get to the point where we shore up and have about maybe 16 solid teams that we can present as a true alternative in the US and Canada to MLS.
A-League Championship Final. Who will lift the trophy this year? Stay tuned and find out.
But the fact is that in Canada, teams like the Toronto Lynx have literally nowhere to go, because since the demise of the CSL, all of Toronto's major soccer stadiums have been demolished, and the Lynx are forced to play in a park-like setting, which, despite the valiant efforts of the owners, seriously negates any chance of the league and game be given any serious consideration by both sponsors and the media. This further nail in the coffin with regard to the development of the Canadian game was exemplified in Canada's performance at the 2003 Gold Cup tournament, a tournament they had won in 2000. Here are the thoughts of Canadian coach Olga Hosiak prior to the opening match.
Over the last 3 years, there's an enormous transition of younger players getting into the program and older experienced players, of course, stepping out, but still we have a good mixture, and I think that the quality of the team is rising. Well, my biggest wish is that we may qualify for the next World Cup in Germany.
And things look good as Canada defeated Costa Rica 1-0 in their first match.
I still have a contract until 2006, so it's quite some time in football, and I definitely want to fulfill this contract and really want to push football forward in this country.
But then Canada were to lose 2-0 to Cuba and crash out in the first round of the 2003 Gold Cup. Well, 2 weeks later, Canadian national team coach Olga Hosiak announced his resignation. Canada had virtually hit rock bottom. CSA President Andy Sharp pondered the reality of Canadian professional soccer.
In Canada, about the only professional soccer we have is the A-League. We've got 4 teams, a 5th one coming on in Edmonton, and I've heard whispers that there's a 6th and 7th actually coming on. So we still need that fan support, and to be quite frank with you, if we don't get the fan support and they don't get out there, these teams will collapse too.
As for long-serving CSA Chief Operating Officer Kevin Pipe, this empty chair and his failure to show for an interview spoke volumes. To clearly illustrate the change of fortune for these 2 closely tied neighbors, the USA went on to take the Gold Cup 2003 bronze medal when they defeated Costa Rica by 3-0 in the 3rd place playoff. A lot of the success of the American national team can be squarely placed on the shoulders of their coach, Bruce Arena.
Things have moved forward since 1994 when we hosted the World Cup. I think that was a real shot in the arm for soccer in this country. It's slowed down a little bit after the '98 World Cup because of our failures in France. However, the beginning of Major League Soccer in 1996 has been good for soccer in the United States, and now 8 years later, I think we're at an all-time high in terms of sponsorships and in terms of support from the American public.
As the MLS completed its 8th season of league play, all that remained to be decided was the 2003 championship final. It would feature Chicago Fire up against the San Jose Earthquake. One of the stars of the San Jose Earthquake is Canadian national team goalie Pat Onstad. Pat was voted most underrated MLS player by the American national newspaper USA Today. Despite this, Pat speaks of the difficulties pertaining to a professional soccer career in North America.
You know, the success I've had in soccer, I think I've been very fortunate. You know, I've been relatively injury-free. I've had a lot of coaches take long looks at me, and I've had you know, some coaches take chances on me, and I've been able to, you know, play now. It's my 17th season of professional soccer, but I think you know, a lot of it has to do with just persevering. You know, this game in Canada is a difficult thing to make a career at, and you know, I've been very fortunate, as have a lot of other players in our country, but it's certainly not a career I would advise many kids on, that's for sure.
That's it. Game over. MLS Cup winner, San Jose for the second time.
With their championship victory over Chicago, a new breed of American soccer stars was making his impact on the game.
I think the World Cup 2002, I mean, it had to be the biggest thing for soccer. But I think after '98, people were a little bit skeptical about soccer in America and U.S. soccer as a whole. But to show how far we've come and not only do well in 2002, but to have a lot of young players and a lot of players that play in MLS do well in the tournament. And I think that was a very telling fact, and it proved a lot to not only us, but to the rest of the world.
The United States has capitalized on the fact that we have a league now, but we're still in that learning process of making it better. As Americans, we're always going to strive to be better, or at least the best that we possibly can be, because Americans don't handle losers very well. We can't be a secondary sport. We have to start pushing it.
The American soccer fans have good reason to look to the future with a great deal of optimism, and few would argue that in all probability, in the not-too-distant future, America will make it all the way to a World Cup final. As for Canada, well, they were thrown a lifeline when Canadian Frank Yallop, coach of the MLS champion San Jose, announced he was taking over the national coaching job. You had to wonder whether we should congratulate Frank or simply offer our condolences. But then doubts are more cruel than the worst of truths. The one bright light through all of this has been the emergence of women's soccer on this side of the Atlantic. But that's another story for another time. Now in the year 2012, the league has grown from 10 teams to 19. 3 of the new teams are located in Canada: Toronto FC, Vancouver Whitecaps, and the Montreal Impact. They have changed the face of soccer in Canada in the most positive way. Great fan support, excellent stadiums, and financial stability.
Go Whitecaps!
Montreal had 60,860 fans attend their match against the LA Galaxy on May 12, 2012. This was a record crowd for a professional soccer match in Canada, the main attraction being Galaxy and England star David Beckham, who left Real Madrid to join the Galaxy for a fee of $6.5 million per season. He has proved to be a fabulous ambassador for the sport in North America, attracting huge crowds and frenzied media, while encouraging the likes of international and Premier League player Robbie Keane to join the Galaxy. One of the most articulate spokespersons for the MLS is former NASL player and Canadian national team player and coach Bobby Lenarduzzi. He explains the difference between the formation of the old NASL compared to today's MLS.
One of the things I think we benefited from in the old NASL days was the fact that players like Johan Cruyff, George Best, didn't have the options of the Middle East and Asia in terms of the kind of money that's available right now. And I think America and Canada, to a lesser extent, were the options that were available to them, and we benefited from getting some of the very, very best players in the world. The difference now is that it's flipped. Last go-round in the NASL days, it was very much driven on the exports. Now what MLS have done, have chosen to build a league that will develop the American and now the Canadian players. And the difference between the two is that this time around MLS has staying power and NASL was more like lightning in a bottle.
In Canada, national team coaches have come and gone with frightening frequency, with little or no success on the field. The CSA continues to be in disarray and living in a world of their own. Despite all of this, Canada's future, like the USA, seems assured to truly succeed in the not-too-distant future.
Very excited. Been waiting a long time for this.
And that foundation began on opening day.
The highlight of that day for me was Eric Hasley scoring the first goal and the way the crowd responded. The way the crowd reacted by holding their scarves up in the air, the chanting that was taking place, and the fact that the crowd were acting like a football crowd, a soccer crowd. I know that people that went to games this year that watched for the first time were okay with the game, but they were actually enthralled with the chanting and the crowd interaction that we had.
Bobby then spoke of the future.
My hope is that we, ourselves in Vancouver, Montreal, or Toronto, Montreal, are all doing their bit to ensure that Canada has a good chance to qualify for World Cups. When you think about the profile that the World Cup has, people watching Canada at the World Cup, I think, would provide a huge, huge building block for the sport. And so we should all be striving towards having our own clubs be successful, but certainly if our national team is successful, that helps the game to grow.
Today, the USA continues to be a potent force in the international world of soccer. David Beckham stated in his 2007 inaugural speech to the LA Galaxy fans that he believes soccer could be as big in the USA as it is everywhere else around the world. One can hardly disagree with that statement.